Have you ever found yourself softening your voice, filtering your thoughts, or shrinking just a little just to be liked? Many of us, especially women, grow up learning that being agreeable, gentle, and pleasant makes us more lovable. We smile when we're uncomfortable. We nod when we want to say no. We apologize for things we didn't do because we're scared that being too much, too direct, or too real might cost us someone's affection. But in chasing that acceptance, what do we give up? Ourselves? The real issue isn't being disliked. The deeper problem is how much of ourselves we're willing to hide, reshape, or abandon just to avoid it. There comes a point when being constantly liked becomes less important than being truly known. Because when you're busy making sure no one hates you, you forget to ask, do I still like myself? Let that be the starting point. 1. Why are we so afraid of being disliked? It sounds simple on the surface. Don't worry about what others think. But living by that advice is anything but easy. In truth, many of us carry a deep, often unspoken fear of being disliked, not just because we want to be accepted, but because being disliked feels like rejection, misunderstanding, or even failure. At the heart of this fear lies something deeply human, the need to belong. From an early age, we learn that connection keeps us safe. So naturally, the idea of someone disapproving of us, judging us, or distancing themselves because of who we are or what we believe hurts. It taps into the fear of being abandoned, misjudged, or labeled as the difficult one. This fear is even more pronounced for women. Social expectations, sometimes subtle, sometimes loudly declared, teach us to value harmony over honesty, likability over authenticity. In many cultures, women are raised to be nice, pleasant, and non-confrontational. Assertiveness, clarity, or setting boundaries can often be misread as coldness or arrogance. As a result, many women develop an internal rulebook that says, don't say no, don't upset anyone, don't be too direct, don't risk being disliked. But let's pause and reflect. What's the cost of living by that rulebook? It's saying yes to dinner plans when your body is begging for rest, just because you don't want to seem rude. It's pretending to be okay with a friend's comment that hurts you, because you don't want to cause tension or risk the friendship. It's biting your tongue in meetings, in relationships, and in everyday conversations just to maintain peace on the outside, while chaos grows on the inside. And it's not that we lack courage. It's that we've been taught, sometimes over and over again, that keeping things pleasant is safer than being real. The result? Many of us move through life in quiet conflict, balancing who we are with who we think others want us to be. This conflict creates emotional fatigue. It's exhausting to constantly filter yourself, to manage others' expectations, and to tiptoe around the possibility of being disliked. The fear of being the bad guy in someone's story leads to silence, suppression, and self-abandonment. But here's the truth. You can't live authentically and avoid all conflict. You can't be fully yourself and be universally adored. As the saying goes, you can't make everyone happy. You're not ice cream. And the point isn't to become careless or unkind. It's to recognize that being real sometimes means being misunderstood. It means risking someone's disapproval for the sake of your own peace. It means trusting that relationships rooted in truth will hold, even when you speak up, even when you set a boundary, even when you say no. It also means understanding that disagreement doesn't always equal dislike. And if someone's opinion of you changes because you stopped people-pleasing, maybe that connection wasn't built on your true self to begin with. There's power in accepting that not everyone will love you. In fact, the moment you stop fearing rejection is often the moment you start reclaiming your freedom. Because when you no longer shapeshift to fit someone else's version of likable, you start attracting people who resonate with the real you. This doesn't happen overnight. Letting go of the fear of being disliked is a process. It takes small acts of courage, like declining a plan without guilt, like saying how you really feel even when your voice shakes, like honoring your energy even when others don't understand. The fear may never fully go away, but over time the reward becomes clear. You'll feel lighter, more honest, and more connected to yourself and to the people who truly see you. After all, the goal isn't to be universally loved. The goal is to be deeply respected, first and foremost by the person you see in the mirror. 2. The consequences of being afraid of being disliked. We often underestimate the quiet damage that comes from constantly trying to be liked. It doesn't always explode into a crisis. More often, it shows up silently in the little ways we shape-shift, suppress, and stretch ourselves to fit into roles that don't reflect who we really are. Over time, this behavior becomes second nature. And before we realize it, we've built a life that pleases others, but quietly starves us. When we are too afraid of being disliked, we lose touch with what we truly want. Decision-making becomes cloudy, not because we're indecisive, but because we're too focused on what others might prefer. We say yes when we want to say no. We say maybe when we already feel definitely not. We prioritize keeping the peace over pursuing our own peace. And slowly, we start forgetting what our own voice even sounds like. One of the first signs of this disconnect is emotional exhaustion. When you're constantly performing in relationships, whether romantic, professional, or social, you carry a pressure that never lets up. You feel like you have to monitor your tone, your words, your reactions. You double-check your messages before sending. You replay conversations in your head, worrying if you sounded too harsh or too distant or too much of anything. This kind of emotional labor is draining. And the deeper danger is it becomes so habitual that we don't even realize we're doing it anymore. We just feel tired, irritable, or numb without understanding that the source of our fatigue is this endless dance of approval. Worse still, relationships built on this fear of disapproval are often fragile and unfulfilling. Because if you've never shown up as your full self, what is it exactly that others are loving? Are they loving you or the version of you you've carefully edited to keep things smooth? Here lies the heaviest truth. No one can truly love you if you've never truly shown up. It's like offering someone a mask and then wondering why their affection doesn't reach your heart. The compliments feel shallow. The connection feels hollow. And you can't quite shake the question. Would they still care if they saw the real me? The answer is maybe not. And that's a risk we must be willing to take. Because pretending is its own kind of loneliness. You could be surrounded by people and still feel invisible, simply because the part of you that needs to be seen is always left in the shadows. Some might say this is the price of being social, or that it's just how adult relationships work. But there is a vast difference between being thoughtful and being inauthentic. You can be considerate without betraying yourself. You can compromise without erasing your needs. And you can maintain kindness without sacrificing your truth. Being real doesn't mean being reckless. It means being rooted. It means knowing that you have a right to your voice, your needs, and your preferences without apology. It means understanding that the people who are meant to stay will stay, not because you're agreeable, but because you're genuine. The cost of being liked at all costs is high. You lose clarity. You lose energy. You lose yourself. And even more painfully, you gain relationships that don't feed your soul, because they're based on versions of you that were never fully honest. So what's the alternative? Start showing up. Little by little, gently but firmly. Say what you mean, even if your voice trembles. Choose what feels right to you, even if it means disappointing someone. Draw boundaries, not to keep people out, but to keep yourself intact. You might not be loved by everyone, but the ones who stay, they'll see you really see you. And that kind of connection is worth more than 100 polite friendships built on pretense. In the end, the goal isn't to avoid rejection, it's to live a life where you no longer reject yourself. Because the most dangerous thing about fearing disapproval is that it convinces you to disappear, piece by piece in exchange for belonging. But true belonging starts when you show up, fully, authentically, unapologetically. 3. Don't be afraid of being disliked. It might mean you finally know who you are. As adults, many of us spend years trying to avoid discomfort in our relationships. We nod even when we disagree. We say yes when we want to say no. We smile through things that quietly hurt us. Why? Because being liked feels safe. Approval feels like belonging. And no one wants to be the person who makes things difficult. But here's the hard truth. Trying to be liked by everyone often leads to being truly known by no one. There's a common misconception that if someone doesn't like you, it means you did something wrong. But disapproval doesn't always signal a mistake. Sometimes it simply means your truth doesn't align with someone else's preferences, and that's okay. When you begin to live with more honesty, when your words and actions reflect your true thoughts and values, not everyone will cheer for you. Some people will be confused. Others will pull away. And a few might even label you as cold, distant, or difficult. That's not a failure. It's a sign you're growing clearer. Clarity naturally filters out what isn't meant for you. But many of us, especially women, were taught that being nice matters more than being real. We've been encouraged to smooth things over, to avoid confrontation, to soften our edges in the name of harmony. So it's no surprise that when we start saying things like, "That doesn't work for me," or "I see this differently," it feels scary. We wonder if we're being harsh. We fear that people will misunderstand us. Still, clarity isn't cruelty. And being straightforward isn't the same as being rude. There's a difference between speaking your truth and steamrolling someone else. Clear communication can coexist with kindness. You can respect others without abandoning yourself. You can say no without being defensive, and share a boundary without guilt. As the saying goes, let the chips fall where they may. You can't control how others respond to your clarity, but you can control whether or not you're living in integrity. And the reward? Peace. When you stop performing for approval, when you no longer filter yourself to be palatable to everyone, something shifts. Your relationships become more genuine. Your sense of self grows stronger. You feel lighter because you're no longer carrying the emotional burden of pleasing everyone. Yes, some people will walk away, but the ones who stay, they're staying for the real you, not the edited version. Of course, this kind of honesty isn't always easy. It takes emotional maturity to communicate clearly without becoming defensive. It takes courage to speak up when silence would be easier. And it takes wisdom to know when to stand your ground and when to simply let things go. But every time you choose clarity over comfort, you build a stronger foundation for your life. You learn that being misunderstood is not the worst thing that can happen. Living out of alignment with your truth is. So the next time you feel tempted to soften, to stay quiet, to be nice, instead of being a real pause, ask yourself, am I doing this out of kindness or out of fear? Because when your actions are guided by fear of rejection, of being disliked, of disappointing others, you slowly lose yourself. But when your actions are guided by truth, even if they come with resistance, you find yourself again. And in that process, yes, you may be disliked, but far more importantly, you'll be at peace. 4. How to stay true without losing warmth. Living authentically can often feel like walking a tightrope. We want to speak up, stand firm, and live in alignment with our values, but we also want to be kind, maintain harmony, and preserve the emotional connections that matter to us. These two intentions may seem at odds, but they don't have to be. It is entirely possible to be both real and respectful, to live truthfully and still care deeply. It all begins with clarity. 1. Know what you stand for. At the heart of living authentically is a clear understanding of your core values. These are the non-negotiables that guide how you show up in the world. They're not about being rigid, but about being rooted. Without this clarity, it's easy to bend too far, to become someone others expect us to be, rather than someone we truly are. Let's say one of your values is emotional safety. You might find that sarcastic or dismissive humor, even when meant playfully, crosses a line for you. In the past, you might have laughed along to keep the peace. But with clarity, you start recognizing those uncomfortable laughs for what they are, moments where you stepped away from yourself. When you know what you stand for, it's easier to decide when to speak up, when to stay silent, and when to walk away. Clarity doesn't shout or argue. It simply allows you to say, "This is who I am, and this is what I value," without apology. 2. Set boundaries without becoming distant. Many people confuse assertiveness with harshness or think that honesty means being blunt, but you don't have to burn bridges to build boundaries. Kindness and clarity can, and should, coexist. It's possible to say no without saying, "Never talk to me again." It's possible to express discomfort without creating conflict. One small, practical way to start is to drop the habit of over-apologizing. Many of us were taught to preface our boundaries with apologies. "Sorry, but I don't like that," or "Sorry, I can't make it." While courtesy is important, we don't need to apologize for simply honoring what feels right to us. Try shifting that language to something firmer yet gentle. "I'm not comfortable with that," or "Thanks for thinking of me, but I'll pass this time." The key is tone and intent. When we set boundaries from a place of respect, both for ourselves and others, they often come across as far more graceful than we fear. 3. Learn to hold yourself when others don't agree. One of the hardest parts of living authentically is accepting that not everyone will like or understand you. That's not a sign of failure, it's a sign of honesty. We are not for everyone. And the sooner we accept that, the freer we become. Still, the emotional aftermath of someone's disapproval can be heavy. It's easy to internalize their discomfort as our wrongdoing. That's why one of the most important emotional skills we can build is self-validation. The ability to sit with ourselves after a tough conversation and say, "I did what felt right. I stood by my values. I was kind and honest, and that's enough." You may find moments where your voice shakes, where you question if you were too much or not enough. But over time, it becomes easier. You begin to see that the relationships which matter most are the ones that withstand your truth. Not because you are perfect, but because you are real. Realness is not rudeness. Living authentically does not give us license to be careless with our words. Being real does not mean being confrontational or dismissive. It means showing up with both truth and tenderness. A person can say, "This isn't okay with me," without raising their voice or closing their heart. The most misunderstood part of authenticity is the belief that we must choose between honesty and harmony. But harmony that depends on silence or self-sacrifice isn't harmony, it's performance. The most meaningful connections grow not from perfection or pleasing, but from presence and honesty. The people who truly care for you will want to know the real you, not just the agreeable version. And if someone pulls away after you show your truth, it may be painful, but it is also a form of clarity. The quiet strength of being whole. Choosing to live authentically is a powerful decision. It's a choice to let go of being liked by everyone in order to be known by the right ones. It's understanding that we don't need to be everyone's cup of tea because we're not ice cream. You can be soft and strong, clear and kind, loving and firm. Living this way takes intention and courage, but it is deeply liberating. Because making others feel comfortable is a beautiful trait, but making peace with who you are, that's priceless. 5. You are most loved when you are yourself. There comes a quiet moment when we stop and ask, am I trying to be loved, or am I living true to myself? It's a question that doesn't always come with easy answers. For so many of us, love has felt conditional. We learn early how to adapt, how to smile when we're uncomfortable, how to agree to avoid conflict, how to shrink just enough to stay acceptable. There is certain clarity that comes when we decide we'd rather be disliked for who we are than adored for who we're not. It's not about being rebellious, difficult, or deliberately controversial. It's about choosing honesty over approval. It's about choosing alignment over applause. Of course, it's not always easy. Being real can be met with resistance. Some people won't understand your shift. They may pull away when you stop over-explaining, over-giving, or over-apologizing. That's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something real. And anyone who only loved the version of you that made no waves may not be someone you need in the tide of your truth. You deserve to be known, not just admired. To be seen in your fullness, not just tolerated in your convenience. And the people who are meant for you, who truly respect your boundaries, your truth, and your growth, won't need you to bend out of shape to make them stay. Choosing to live this way may feel vulnerable at first. You might wonder if you're too much or not enough. You might second-guess your voice, your choices, your need for space or clarity. That's part of the process. You're not just learning to be honest with the world. You're learning to believe that honesty doesn't make you unlovable. It's okay to be misunderstood sometimes. It's okay to lose people who are only holding on to a version of you that never really existed. You're not here to be everyone's favorite. You're here to be free. I'd rather be disliked for who I am than loved for who I'm not. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.